Now, this isn't just an ordinary video. I'm here at Volkswagen's Performance Day, where I'm driving a bunch of GTi and R cars out on track, which is a super awesome opportunity and the first time I've ever done something like this. But more importantly, I'm getting up close and personal and getting a first look at the Golf R 20 years. Let's check out that car first. Here it is. This is one of the most expensive Golfs and most powerful Golfs ever created. This is the Volkswagen Golf R 20 years edition. There's only 50 of these coming to Australia and only 32 of them will be blue. The rest of them will be in this color here. And as you can see, it's not just any Golf R. So yes, it's one of the most expensive Golf Rs ever created because it's going to cost you $77,490 before on roads. And yes, that might sound expensive, but it's probably going to be already sold out by the time you're watching this video because pre-orders have opened the day this video has been uploaded. So this engine's seen a power bump. Now, if you haven't seen it already, there is a 333 horsepower edition of the Golf R that has been unveiled for Germany only. But here's the good news. We don't get that, but we get the same motor. This is a 245 kilowatt motor, which is 333 horsepower and produces 420 newton meters of torque. So that's going to be an extra 10 kilowatts, which is around 13 horsepower, and an extra 20 newton meters more than the standard Golf R hatch. Oh yeah, and this thing will accelerate 0 to 100 0.2 seconds quicker than a standard Golf R hatch. So that's a bit of a flex if you pay more for this compared to someone who's bought a Golf R. Now this white car gets special blue accents. We get blue R badges. We of course get that famous blue piping across the front. This white car also gets blue accents over the alloy wheels, which is probably the most standout feature to know that this is a 20 years edition of the Golf R. And then in a bit of like a Golf Harlequin throwback, we get blue mirror caps, which look like they were taken off a blue Golf R, but instead they're used here to sort of highlight this is the 20 years edition. We also get more blue badging on the side. Now there's a pretty big 20 here on the A-pillar to let you know that this is a 20 years edition Golf R as well. So just in case you missed it. So you get an extended spoiler with a contrasting bit of black here, which just looks so cool. Get another blue R badge, but more importantly, we get these massive quad exhausts out the back. This isn't a Kropovich exhaust and it is made of titanium. It's meant to give you a few more pops, burbles, bangs, a bit more sound out of this thing to sort of give it a nice bit of celebration. This is a 20 years anniversary edition of the Golf R. Now this isn't a cheap option if you want to go hunting for one of these for your Golf. It will cost you around $6,000 as an option if you could get it on your Golf. Now on the inside, you are getting some pretty cool special touches. Now you get a key here with a blue R badge on it to let everyone know that you did get the 20 years anniversary Golf R. Now we have real carbon fiber inlays here on the dash and the doors, which looks so good. Now we have some usual R touches like blue badging on the steering wheel, some extended paddles and some nice bucket seats as well with plenty of blue accents. So this blue, black and white theme looks really good, especially here on the Golf R. So now it's time to take this thing out on a racetrack. Yes, I said racetrack. We're not on any B roads today. We're out testing this properly out on track. So let's get going. Launch control activated. Check that out. Oh, a bit of wind noise because you got to hear that Kropovich exhaust, but this thing is a monster. So if you like the Golf R, you have to consider putting your name down for one of these. Now look, there's only 50 coming to Australia, so it's pretty limited if you live here. But if you have the opportunity to buy one, or you know, better off getting a second-hand one of someone who didn't want one, you should definitely consider it if you want a pretty good celebration and a great birthday present for the Golf R. Now this thing pushes out 245 kilowatts and 420 newton meters of torque. So it's an extra 13 horsepower, an extra 20 newton meters of torque, and that produces 333 horsepower to the four wheels that this all-wheel drive system powers. Now we have ourselves a 7-speed dual clutch, big paddles, and a delectable amount of engagement. So we have some pretty cool tuning with this gearbox here, which allows you to get snappier shifts. We also have a turbocharger system, which acts as a very, very, very rudimentary form of anti-lag. So it's always sort of spooled, feeding air in, so you don't get that lag when you push your foot down. So if we're in the mid-range here, for example, and I go to punch it, power surge is on. It doesn't actually, you know, like lag too much, which is great. And just listen to that exhaust, that titanium exhaust. There's a reason why I was one of the last people to drive this today. I intentionally left it because I wanted this car to be all warmed up. Why? For that titanium exhaust out the back. I wanted the best temperatures to get you the best clips of what that sounds like from one, the outside, and two, from the inside, which is more important because you're probably gonna be driving around with the windows down like this and just listening to it. So this Akrapovic exhaust is something that's pretty special. Now look, if you try and go and get one, it's not gonna be cheap. So Volkswagen values this add-on as around like $6,000, and it's made of titanium, it's hand built, and it's one of those things that will get better with time because titanium sort of burns in a special way when it gets a lot of heat through it. As you've seen on some supercars, when it sort of discolors and it turns a bit different, it's kind of a cool material that is a really cool material to use on your exhaust because it changes its sound profile as it ages, and usually for the better. I'll enter our special mode here in Nürburgring mode because I like that mode the best in these Golf Rs. It's just that torque's pretty good, 420 Newton meters of torque, and that exhaust is just awesome. This is like the ultimate expression of the Golf R. It's the most characterful, it's the most entertaining, it's the best looking in a while, and it's one of those things that I'm so glad we got here in Australia. This thing's gonna be pretty rare to see if you see it out on the road because there are only gonna be 50 of them roaming around, which is a bit of a shame because this motor is pretty cool. The 333 horsepower motor is something I wish you could get in the regular Golf R, and also wish that Akrapovic exhaust was a bit more readily available, but unfortunately you'll have to buy this if you want the complete package with those blue wheels, which I love. You want the real carbon fiber inserts here, and if you want that exhaust and this engine, it's just it's so much fun. So for some of you guys commenting on this video, there's probably two questions you're probably gonna ask me down below. And one of them is it worth getting the 20 years Golf R? So I've got here with me the Managing Director of Volkswagen Australia, Michal. And so Michal, I just had that question for you. Why would I buy 20 years and why would I jump on to a pre-order to get that? Or if I got the opportunity to buy one, why would I buy one of those instead of tuning up a Golf R?
The Golf R 20-year edition though has 10 kilowatts more and has a much more unique personality and spec. You will experience a very different much more racy experience in the 20-year edition than Golf R, which already is an amazing performance car. But just this is an unrivaled experience on the racetrack compared to the standard one.
Obviously, as the managing director, you get to experience the entire performance range that you have here. And I just have to know, if I was new to the brand and I just had to pick one, I don't have any kids to worry about, I just want to drive one that you would think would be the best for someone new to the brand. Mm-hmm. Which car would you pick personally out of all the GTIs and Rs we have offered today?
Probably I'll start with Polo GTi, because it's our smallest beast, very well priced and very, very attractive in terms of the performance experience. If your family gets a bit bigger, then the functionality of SUV with our T-Roc R or Tiguan R gives this beautiful combination of the performance of amazing 2 through 35 kilowatt engines and this SUV functionality for your family. So it's you can pick basically any of them depending on where you are in your life, from Polo GTi through to our SUVs R family.
And I just had one last question. We have some incoming performance electric Volkswagen products coming very soon, and we have some pretty big legacy with GTi and R, and obviously the future of the car industry is to go to electric. So I wanted to know, how are you going to make your electric cars live up to the legacy that these petrol models have created?
Absolutely, great question. We've been with our R family for 20 years now, and this is now today a legend and icon. GTX is built very consistently on all the lessons that we've collected over the last 2 decades with R, GTX family, so our electric vehicle variants, performance variants, are built on those 2 decades of experience that we have uniquely in the market. And I'm sure we're going to continue, probably even more in an accelerated way, for GTX to build them into the icons, not in 2 decades, but maybe in 1 decade already.
So here we have the baby performance SUV of the performance lineup here at Volkswagen. This is what we're driving on track as well. This is the T-Roc R, and this thing starts at a pretty low price at $54,300 for the Grid Edition, which is like the base model of this car, but this one here is $59,300 before on road. So this is running a 2-liter E888 motor, which is a very familiar motor, except this one's running 221 kilowatts, which is around 296 horsepower, and 400 newton meters of torque. And it's sending power to all 4 wheels, which is pretty fun. It's got progressive steering, and it's got all the upgrades that you'd expect from a top-of-the-range Volkswagen product. But it will do a 0 to 100 run in 4.9 seconds with launch control, which is pretty exciting. But what's really cool about this car, the visual touches on the outside, like this carbon fiber look, bit of trim to let you know that this is a T-Roc R, obviously a big R badge, and then these quad pipes down below, which just looks so cool. This is your other R product that does have terrain modes, which is kind of interesting. And you also do have an all-wheel drive system, of course. So yeah, you've got yourself a car that's pretty fun to play with. You have an R button on the steering wheel, you have big paddles, and look, it doesn't sound too bad either. Now this doesn't sound as crazy as the other Golf R because it's a slightly less powerful motor. So it's not my ultimate choice in the range. I think it's for people who want a spicy little small SUV that's not going to cost too much, but it's going to offer plenty of performance. Then this is a good option. So I would say, like, you know, if you're not going for a Golf GTi, you might want to step into something like this. Now, of course, here we have the Mark 8 generation Golf GTi. This is another thing I've been driving out on track. This is pushing 180 kilowatts, which is around 241 horsepower and 370 newton meters of torque. Now, this is front wheel drive only, definitely not as potent as an R model, so it's going to be a bit slower to 100 kilometers an hour. It's going to take around 6.4 seconds using launch control. Now, the GTi is just a bit more tame than a Golf R, so you get a pretty normal looking rear. You do get GTi stamped here on the back, which I like. And you also get these very iconic twin chrome exhausts, which sound like this. So to understand the Golf R20s edition and why it exists, we have to start with this, the Golf GTi, where it pretty much all started. But this is in the, Mark 8 generation. We're here in the latest generation of the Golf GTi, so we're a bit further away from the original Golf. But this thing is a front-wheel drive, turbocharged, 4-cylinder hot hatch, which is always a lot of fun to drive. I'm out here on a racetrack, and the footage you're seeing me driving right now is a limited speed, so I can talk to you comfortably in the car, but some overlaid footage of my GoPro will show this thing can easily clock nearly 200 kilometers an hour on the main straight here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Now, the Golf GTi has a mechanical front limited slip differential, which means it's going to shuffle power around the front to make sure you're going to avoid that dreaded front-wheel drive understeer. And it also has a multi-link rear rather than a torsion beam like you're going to see on the Polo GTi, which makes it a bit more capable through corners and not so lively. It's going to be a bit more better behaved. Now look, the GTi is a ton of fun out here on the track, and it was really good just to get a feel for what the benchmark of Volkswagen hot hatches are. This thing is just always going to be the benchmark for a lot of hot hatches. It's capable, it's comfortable, it's a daily driver. Sure, there's more aggressive hot hatches out there, but this thing is the best overall example of a hot hatch, something that's really easy to live with and, plenty of fun to drive around on either a racetrack like this or out on a back road. Now, I'd be lying to you if I said I probably wasn't as excited to drive a Tiguan R today compared to the other cars out here, but after spending some seat time in it and also the other cars, this is one of the coolest R products that are out at the moment. So it gets the same motor from the Golf R, so it's a bit more powerful than a T-Roc R, and it's going to be something that you can take your family around in. And so if you see this thing from the back, you're going to know instantly that this is a Tiguan R, thanks to that big R badge stamp there, and of course those chrome quad exhausts at the rear, which just looks so cool. And if you couldn't convince someone to buy a T-Roc R, well, you have a far more practical, bigger, and sort of cooler Tiguan R that you can buy. And here's what those exhausts sound like. Now this thing has an R button on the steering wheel, and it is the school bus from hell. This thing is awesome because it is a sub $100,000 performance SUV with all the luxury appointments you'd expect from something like a European manufacturer, except it's now got performance upgrades. So proper brakes, so if you go on to put the bite on them, they really do hook up, and you can hear that gearbox respond accordingly. You have an R button here to put you straight into race mode, and you can knock down the gears and have a bit of fun with this thing. Like, all the things that made that Golf R very special have been just transplanted into your family SUV. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't have a Nürburgring mode, so you don't get that extra playful mode here, but you don't really need it because this is something that's just designed to satisfy both you as the car enthusiast and your family who aren't car enthusiasts and despise the fact that they would be driving around in a noisy hatchback. Instead, you give them an SUV and it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. If anyone's going to notice anything, it's going to be the fact that this thing has a big quad pipe setup out the back. Now this thing actually handles pretty well, which I was really surprised by. It's got, yeah, a fair amount of lean in it for sure, but it's pretty flat. It's not as smooth sailing as, say, the Golf R Wagon, but it's not too bad. Now, thank you so much for joining me on this track day. I hope you got a good taste of what Volkswagen's been cooking up in the R and GTi department, and especially got a good look at this Golf R 20 years. Now, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button so hard your screen turns black, and make sure you leave a like if you like this review, and dislike if you didn't like it. But let me know, would you get a 20 years Golf anniversary if you wanted to buy one? Let me know in the comments.